Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2016 science fiction action thriller Kill Command. Kill Command is a movie that I was curious about seeing because I actually liked the trailer. The trailer intrigued me, and this is a film that I don't believe has actually been released officially yet in the United States. It's been released on Blu-ray in Germany, and I believe it had a limited theatrical release in the UK. But it's a very low budget movie. It's a film that only cost about $1 million to make. It's written and directed by Stephen Gomez. This is the first time he's ever directed a movie. And if you ask me, I think he did a pretty good job for a directorial debut with this. This is a movie that, like I said, saw the trailer, was curious about it. I liked the concept interested me. The idea of a bunch of Marines uh, going into a test exercise. So they go in and then they go into this what looks like a forest, and they're going into a test exercise with a bunch of machines, which is a sort of thing you're led to believe that okay, it's a military test exercise, but then something goes wrong. Something goes wrong during this exercise, and things turn deadly. And then these machines start to pick off the soldiers one by one. So it kind of gave me sort of a Predator vibe, but with robots instead of the Predator. So it's a more serious version of Robo-War. And probably a bigger budgeted version of Robo-War as well. Uh, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, Robo-War is a Predator ripoff from I believe, the late 80s or the early 90s that stars Red Brown. It's definitely late 80s. I don't think it's early 90s. But anyway, getting back to the film, Kill Command. It looks like it might be some Sci-Fi Channel original movie bullshit, but trust me, it isn't. This is actually a surprisingly competent movie for such a low budget. I would probably say I liked it. I didn't love the movie. I would say at best it's a time waster. It's okay, but for a film that's just super low budget and a movie that's essentially a direct-to-video film, that's pretty good. I mean, that's kind of what I was expecting. That's all I was expecting out of this. Is just an average movie, and that's what I got here, and I'm not disappointed by that because that's what I was expecting with this. That was so I'm not too disappointed with that result. Kill Command is, like I said, it's written and directed by Stephen Gomez. Has a pretty solid cast who do pretty respectable jobs with their performances. Vanessa Kirby, who plays Mills, who is this. She was paralyzed when she was young, and so this company called Harbinger ended up putting an implant in her that enabled her to be able to walk, but she basically becomes a company woman, a company uh, girl, so to speak, because all this information and stuff like that is implanted into her brain, and she's pretty much half human, half machine. And this implant in the back of her neck is what's enabling her to be able to walk, and she's an employee of this company called Harbinger. I thought her performance is actually pretty good. You also have Thure Lindhardt, who plays Captain Bukes. This guy, he's okay. He's just uneven. You can tell English is not his first language. There are times where his American accent goes from just regular American accent to a little bit of Southern drawl. It's just really just kind of weird. But I didn't mind him though. He reminded me of a cross between Woody Harrelson and Anthony Michael Hall. You have David Ajala, who plays Drifter, who I really liked him in this. I thought he was great. And he's essentially a poor man's Idris Elba in this. But I think he did a good job. I liked his character, and it was really too bad to see what happened to him later in the film. Which I won't get to soon enough. You have Bentley Kalu, who plays Robinson, who's this big, tall, black guy with a sniper rifle. Tom McKay plays Cut Bill, who's another one of the Marines. Mike Noble plays Goodwin, who's one of these Marines who's kind of He's kind of scared. He's kind of the guy who you would think would not survive very long. And in a surprising twist, he actually does. He's one of the few survivors by the end of the movie, which is actually was honestly pretty surprising. I did not expect that character to survive, let alone live as long as he did. And Deborah Rosan plays a laboratory technician. You have Okafor, who plays Okerafor, plays Loftus. Tim Ahern plays a Harbinger executive. And Kelly Gough plays Hackett, who's one of the Marines. And Kill Command is set in the future. Sometime in the future. We don't know exactly what time in the future it's set in. But in this future, there is, of course, big corporations that try to like run things, and Harbinger is the big corporation here. And before I get into a little bit of the plot, I'm going to talk about a few other things about the film. It features music by Stephen Hilton. The music is pretty much just Hans Zimmer-ish. It's just a lot of, dun, dun. It's a lot of that kind of stuff, so it's not really much of a score. Cinematography is by Simon Dennis. So that was pretty good for what it was. It helped add to some atmosphere and mood to the movie. The editing by Celeste Bothwick and Alex Mackey, I think, is honestly pretty good for such a cheap, low budget movie. This film I thought did a lot with a low budget. There are times where the CGI is a bit wonky looking, where it doesn't look very good. There are times where the green screen just is they do some screening effects that just looks really bad at times. But there's some other stuff that's really impressive, to be honest. I don't think they did. I don't think these robots were practical. I think they were done with CGI, and with a pretty low budget, they managed to. It doesn't look like Asylum level. Even the worst effects don't look nearly as bad as anything that the Asylum would put out. So, yeah. Anyway, the basic gist of the plot is this: you have these group of Marines who are sent to this test facility which they don't really necessarily know it's a test facility yet. But by the way, there's going to be spoilers here because I can't find a synopsis of this that doesn't have any spoilers. So sorry. I have to go off the top of my head here. Um, so they go to the first half of the film, the first 20 minutes or so, kind of slow. Not much happens. It kind of introduces the character of Mills, played by Vanessa Kirby, what she's doing. She helped create these machines, who are then sent to this test. It is pretty much a test site. So it's set to a test site, it looks like a forest, and it starts out as a non-violent test thing for these soldiers to test their might, to test their will, to test how efficient they are in terms of taking out the enemy. And in this instance, the enemy is a bunch of machines. And these machines, they have these little drones that fly around and communicate with the other robots. And there's these kind of look like spiders, like robotic spiders, but they have guns on top. So they're like walking guns, which seems kind of silly, but it actually works really well. And the film actually ends up making these walking guns look pretty formidable in terms of an adversary for these Marines. And at first, it seems like it's easy. These Marines are wisecracking, doing this and so on. There's a little bit of an interesting dynamic between the Marines and Mills. They seem to be very uncomfortable around her because they don't believe that she's human, because she isn't 100% human, because she has these implants and things like that inside her body. Uh, some nice little witty banter back and forth between the Marines and stuff like that. I gotta give the writer and the director, the guy who also directed this, Stephen Gomez, I gotta give him credit for, I think he did a great job portraying these characters as humans. He did a good job making these characters seem human and make them likable. There was maybe like a couple ones that, I mean, Captain Buke's kind of a kind of a hard ass at times, kind of hard to like him, but you kind of warmed up to him a little later in the film. And yeah, I think for the most part it's a pretty well written script. So the thing is, though, it doesn't really do a lot that hasn't been done before. So that's why it's just at best a time waster for me. But what even though it covers familiar ground, it's still somewhat entertaining. It's still worth a watch because of how it builds up these things. I liked how low key it was. It was refreshing to see a low key movie like this, where it spent a lot of its time building up tension and building up suspense. And a lot of people might find that boring, but to me, I think that actually helped the film because it helped it just it gave a little bit more weight to it. So pretty much what happens is the Marines make short work of these robots at first. I think it's just going to be easy peasy, enough is going to be a piece of cake. And then things turn deadly because then these walking guns start to actually start firing live ammunition. And in a pretty, I didn't see it coming. They did a good job editing this, where one of the Marines, the other female in the group, she gets shot, and then it starts this sort of firefight that's going on, where these machines, these walking guns are just shooting live ammunition at the Marines. And before this, there's this sort of thing that happens where Mills, she goes up and finds what looks like this just broken down a robot, and is able to communicate with it because of the implant that's in the back of her neck, and inadvertently activates it. And then she sees what looks like flashes of people getting killed by this robot, and then the robot disappears. And then now she's like, oh shit. So that part, I don't know. I mean, the screenplay could be a little bit better in that instance because it basically makes it look like the other reason why all this is happening is because she inadvertently activated some murder bot. But that's just the kind of I think the screenplay is to blame for that because later on in the film you find out that there was a whole plan behind this, that the murder bots themselves are the ones that wanted the Marines there, because it's not just a forest somewhere. The whole place they're on is like some island that is literally just a testing facility for these machines. And these machines got sent in it and took some advice from Skynet and the Terminators and just started killing people once they ran out of dummies to test their efficiency on. So they're called SAR. And these robots, they're meant they have this mission where they're going to. It's not really that clear. That's one aspect of the script I think could have been done better. It just seems like their mission is to, I don't know, prove that robots are better than humans, because that's the whole thing you kind of get later on, is that there's this revelation that these machines were built in part with help by Mills to replace humans, to replace the Marines, in order to prevent loss of human life, and so on. So that's sort of an interesting sort of it's a dilemma, but but you've definitely seen that done before in a lot of other movies. But so yeah, so it's kind of slow. It takes a while to get going, but once it does, I think it's got some good atmosphere. It can be kind of creepy at times. The setting of the woods is actually a good location, and they're definitely, when in these sequences where the robots are picking off the soldiers one by one, it totally reminds me of Predator, and I think this it's a better Predator knockoff or Predator ripoff than Predators, if you ask me, because it actually manages to create some genuine suspense. And but there are some things that I really liked the Drifter character, and he dies, and I'm like, and then after he dies, then the film it kind of it kind of loses interest. I kind of lose some interest in it for a bit because I really liked that character. He had a good personality. He was likable. He had a good chemistry with Mills. I don't know why they killed him off. I think they should have killed off Captain Bukes, played by Thure Lindhardt, first. Instead, if they're going to kill some semi-big character off, they should have killed him off instead of Drifter, because I thought the guy was just a lot better than he was, played by Bentley Kalu. But, that's just my personal opinion. But anyway, so yeah, he gets killed. Really what happens is the robot's gonna like slice him up, but then he gets shot by one of his own men to put him out of his misery. And this is all while Mills is trying to shut the robots down, and she's having a hard time, and she's trying to tell like the other Marines like, "Hey, don't do it yet. I can stop it." And they're like, "Nope," and they shoot Drifter, which is really too bad. And then it starts this kind of sort of really brief paranoia thing where they're all like, "Who are you? Are you one of them?" And then but that doesn't really last very long. And then they go in and there's a pretty tense sequence where they find this room, and they open this door and get away from the walking guns, and then they go in and they go into this room and they find out it's a room filled with all of these robots, these killer robots. And they already had the revelation, though, before this, of what these robots, they were created by Mills, who helped create these robots. So anyway, a nice tense scene where Mills pretty much turns on one of the robots and communicates with it in order to see what the whole plan is. Why are they doing this? And I guess the whole thing is the robot tells her, because the robots are all connected to one another. So if she turned on one of these other robots, it would know what the other robots know that are trying to chase after them and kill them. So, this other robot, it basically, she turns on the speech mode, and the robot is saying things like, that's where you find out that they're SAR, and things like search, analyze, and reprogram. And so these robots, that's where she finds out that the reason why they changed to live ammunition is because the soldiers are not performing as they would have expected, and so they changed some things in order to get, I don't know, higher performance in these robots' minds out of the Marines. And you have of course, the character Mills. She's just confused by all of this, and she ends up trying to deactivate them or try to hack into them, and the robots are like, access denied, access denied. And then they basically, the other robot turns on another one, and then it gets pretty tense because now she's like locked in this room with these killer robots, and she gets away. The robots start chasing after other soldiers. They blow one up, and then it leads up to a pretty fun action sequence near the end where the last remaining surviving Marines are holed up, and they have to fend for themselves. They have to try to survive and against every other walking gun robot that's left, and the big robot, the one that Mills, I guess, woke up near the beginning of the movie. He's the evil robot leader, so to speak. He's the SAR leader. He's just as bad as SARS. But anyway, so it's a pretty fun action sequence. You have some nice bits of gunplay, some nice bits of blowing up some of the robots. It's well edited, it's well directed. It's got good sound editing as well. The shots you definitely do hear. They got a lot of impact, the gunshots and so on. And it basically leads up to this sort of climax where it looks like, because earlier one of the robots that was blown up earlier, when it got blown up, it automatically activated an EMP. So that's something that's set up so that any other like opposing military can't really get the tech, so to speak, if they shoot down one of these robots in a battle, because the robots then self-destruct and send off an EMP, which completely just erases all of the hard drives and everything that these robots have in their heads, or in their, not really in their heads, but in their machinery, so to speak. And so Mills decides that she's going to take one of these EMPs and put it with a detonator. She enhanced it so it makes a bigger explosion, and she realizes, I helped create these. I want to end it myself. And Captain Bukes is like, no, don't do this. If you do this, you'll never make it, and I can't let you do this. Well, it looks like the Marines have given these machines the best shot. The sniper guy, he shot down a few of them, but eventually it just gets too much and he gets shot down. And Bukes he's in a situation where he's stuck. The robots are there, they're shooting at him. He's literally trapped. If he moves and goes for the detonator, he's going to get shot dead. And that's when Mills comes up, grabs the detonator, and she's about to detonate it. And then something happens I did not expect. The lead robot basically summons one of the walking guns to shoot her in the chest, which I did not expect because I was thinking it was going to be the self-sacrifice moment. And that's not really what happens. So, shoots her in the chest, so she's going to die anyway. So she ultimately does press the detonation button, which takes out all the other robots. But the other, the SARS bots, the robot that's worse than SARS, or just as bad as SARS, he comes back to life and then chases after Captain Bukes, starts kicking his ass, and Captain Bukes is like, come on, finish it. And the robot's like, the robot doesn't give a shit about it for some reason and goes after Mills, who's like crawling around on the ground. And there's something to do with the mission. The mission isn't complete. He's trying to analyze her. Because he's realized that once the EMP went off, her implant got shut down or severely damaged. So the robot has a hard time analyzing her or understanding what she is. So it seems like an unknown element now that this robot can't comprehend. And in a pretty cool scene, the robot is like analyzing her and is like, "What are you? Like, what are you?" And she's like, "Human." And then she uses her trick, one little bit that she had left after her hard drive crashed or whatever. When she uses her ability to control the guns with whatever is left of her implant. So the gun then shoots the SARS bot, right in the forehead. And so I thought it was a pretty, kind of fun moment. It's like, what construct are you? Human. Boom. And the SARS bot is dead. And then the last survivors are Bukes and Goodwin, the kind of, squirrely guy, which is absolutely surprising that he survived. Transport ship comes back and picks them up. And then the last shot of the movie is something I didn't really like this. It was to be expected because the SARS bot scanned her earlier. So then Bukes is left for dead, and then she opens her eyes and she's got the same lights in her eyes that the SARS bot had on his forehead. And so it's assumed that the SARS bot has transferred his consciousness or something and his mission plan into her and setting up for a sequel that will probably never happen. So yeah, we didn't need that sequel bait ending. That was completely unnecessary. But yeah, that's Kill Command. I really don't know what to say about the movie, except it was an entertaining time waster. Had some decent bits of gunplay, nice little bits of action, some good characters, some decent performances by the cast, solid direction, interesting, intriguing script. It would have been nice to see what would have been if it had more of a budget. It did a lot with its budget, but it would have been nice to see what it could have done, what more it could have done with more money and a little bit more time behind it. To flesh out the story and the screenplay and the characters a little bit more, and to have a little bit more dynamic set pieces. Because honestly, I would like a little bit more action. There's a little bit of action in this, but it's kind of the garden variety. But what is there is efficient enough to at least be entertaining, especially the last bit or so, the last stand of the Marines versus the machines near the end of the movie. But yeah, I don't know what to say about the movie except if it interests you, if you like the trailer or it looks interesting to you, I think it's worth at least one watch. If I was going to rate Kill Command out of 5 stars, I would give it 3 out of 5 stars because it's pretty much what it is. It's a mediocre, so-so, okay movie. That's not really a problem to me because that's, like I was saying earlier, that's what I expected from this movie. I expected it to be just decent. That's pretty much what I got, and I'm okay with that. I definitely pick this up on DVD or whatever once it does get released for cheap sometime in the future. But anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.